Hello, I'm Chris Williams, and today we're going to be reviewing Marvel Team Up featuring Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel, Issue 2. Alright, if I thought the cover last issue was good, or at least decent, but I thought it was rather with bland, with washed out colors, this issue is a bit worse. The cover by Stefano Casilli and Tayana Farrell, I would say, is just... I'm not enjoying it. It just shows two characters looking at the reader again. Usually I would say this is good if it was really cool. But this is just... I'm just not enjoying this. It just has Kamala Khan in Spider-Man's body with her costume. Well, Spider-Man in Ms. Marvel's costume with his logo and shirt on. It's just a mediocre cover. Decent is best you can say about it. Well, we start out with Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel, where we left off last issue, with them just realizing that they've exchanged bodies. And the artwork here by Joey Vasquez, I'd say, is a bit better than it was in the last issue. At least this panel looks good. With Spider-Man with his eyes closed. And I know it's a bit silly that he designed his costume to be able to have his eyes closed. And they just realize that that's not actually Spider-Man. It's Ms. Marvel in Spider-Man's body. And they say, oh my gosh. And Spider-Man in Ms. Marvel's body says, holy cow, I'm you. Where you're me? Oh no. And it's boring. I've seen this dialogue in other comics or other movies where people have switched bodies, and this is just a rehash of that story. Well, what happens is that Ms. Marvel goes to learn that who Spider-Man really is, because she can't take being in someone else's body unless she knows whose face she now has. And she learns that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. Well, Peter Parker responds in kind. Well, she tells him not to do it, but she learns that Ms. Marvel is Kamala Khan. And he says, great meeting you, Great meeting you, Ms. Marvel. And for a second, they exchange minds again. The process seems to be temporary, but it turns out it actually reverses again, so Ms. Marvel is once again in Spider-Man's body. Apparently, for some odd reason, the process that exchange minds keeps occurring over and over again. Now, I gotta tell you, how does this device work exactly? I mean, it was supposed to copy people's memories. People's minds are not their memories. You can have no memories and still have a mind. So it shouldn't be able to work like this with them just suddenly exchanging their memories and minds constantly over and over again. Here we see Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel trying to activate their powers or use their powers. And he says, all right, let's go, as they're trying to go back to their Ms. Marvel's house. And Spider-Man's up saying, Imbrigan. And Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel says, gah. Well, Ms. Marvel says, aw, man, because they don't know how their powers work. He tries to shoot webs, even though he knows that Ms. Marvel has stretching powers. And he says, Imbrigan, and what happens is he turns himself into one of those bobbleheads or a Pez dispenser. Well, his arms turn into noodles with giant hands. And the artwork here is just bad. Couldn't you do something better than that? And how is Ms. Marvel's body still able to stand with a giant head like that? Alright, does the weight change? I don't really know. Alright, they managed to get back to Ms. Marvel's house, and Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man ask about how they're going to do this, because Spider-Man isn't so sure he wants to spend the night in Ms. Marvel's home. And they just continue to exchange dialogue about this. It's just the stuff that you've seen in other body exchange stories. Saying, this is how you do it, and this is like that, and try not to be known. But then they end up switching bodies once again. And this switch right here, I think it's because they decide to part ways at this point. Well, because Ms. Marvel goes into her house and that she's just happy that she's herself again, while Peter Parker goes home. Get this. The process here is still going to happen over again. They should not come into contact with each other without having to worry to exchanging bodies again. well, Ms. Marvel spends the night in her house, and later on, when she goes out to take out the garbage, Peter ends up greeting her and saying that we should probably do something about this because we don't know how long this process will just keep happening until it becomes permanent or it wears off, and that we need to talk to someone about this. Well, what happens next is, predictably, they came into contact with each other, even though Miss Marvel could probably have gotten a phone call from Peter Parker telling her about this, because maybe Peter Parker, for all his genius, didn't realize that maybe this process would not occur if they weren't close to each other. And guess what happens? They exchange bodies once again. And Peter Parker isn't quite sure how to greet Miss Marvel's mother. He says mom at first, or mommy. And what happens? He says it's Ami, not mom, Ami. And Peter Parker nods with a what's the word here? I'm looking, a distressed look on his face, or her face now. And they spend the day, because this is something that happened in the last issue as well. They talk about how it would be great to be younger or older. Each of them saying that, and oh God, we're going that storyline again. Miss Marvel thinks that it would be great to be strong and be older and to be independent, while Miss Marvel is just glad to be back in high school again. Oh, good. Spider-Man's back in high school again. And Miss Marvel enjoying buying stuff. And as he says, with Peter Parker saying it's hard to be adulting and stuff. And this is all just boring. And we even have racism from the white girls harassing Kamala Khan. And this is just boring while Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, has to deal with Peter's life and about business and stuff like that. And they're not enjoying it at all, apparently. And later on, Peter says, is every day like this for you, being a minority? Oh, great. How nice. As they're eating hot dogs on the roof of a building. And this is just, oh, come on. Can't we do something better than this SJW stuff on top of a bland and just overdone story with people exchanging their bodies or even being changed to the opposite gender as well? Oh, good. You're doing more of those tired old tropes. Come on, writer Eve L. Irving. This is your second issue, and you're just making me want to pull out my eyeballs. And the artwork here is just bad. Peter Parker and Kamala Khan see a bunch of thugs stealing nuclear waste from a nuclear power plant. Okay, it's probably, it's nuclear waste. That can't possibly be what's the word, uranium, because it looks like a nuclear waste dumpster. Those crooks are trying to steal, and they go down there and they try to stop them. But because they're still not real sure how their powers work, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, webs up Spider-Man with his own webbing. Well, he and her being tied up doesn't realize they could probably just shapeshift out of it. What happens next is that those thugs think that they're just posers, and so they fire on them because they've seen Spider-Man and Ms. Marvel before, apparently, or at least seen their battles. And because these guys don't know how their powers work, they think they're just posers or just fanboys, so they fire at them. And Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man barely escape without being shot at. And the artwork here is just boring. Even the coloring is boring. It's washed out, and I can barely tell the street is more brightly colored than our heroes, as the machine guns fire into it. And I know it's trying to be stylistically, but does the street need to be bright red or pink in areas as well? The comic ends with Spider-Man coaching Ms. Marvel on how to use his body. And he smiles in her body, saying, "You're learning quickly. If you're going to end up living in my body for a while, you might as well learn how to be Spider-Man." Meanwhile, the Jackal has stolen the data on the device that caused Ms. Marvel and Spider-Man to switch bodies from the doctor who created it. She's all tied up as he's going through her files. And this is how the issue ends. Now, this issue was just silly Billy and very boring with a bunch of stupid jokes over and over again. It was bad. This series is just bad. The writer here, Eve L. Irving, they should have gotten a better writer for this. This story should have been something different as well, because once again, it's another body exchange story. That was the same thing we saw during Superior Spider-Man. Alright, if you like this review, subscribe, make sure you're still subscribed, hit that bell for notifications, and leave a like. And also, leave some comments down below. And remember, keep checking back in future videos for more information on my own upcoming independent comic book, Scumdogs. And I'll see you all again soon. I'm Chris Williams, and I'm off for the day. Bye.